With the concerning news this week that the country's supply of diesel gas has reached historic lows, Republican members of the House Oversight Committee have raised concerns over reports that President Biden intends to impose an oil and gas export ban. In a letter to Energy Department Secretary Jennifer Granholm, the Republican lawmakers request all documents and information related to the Biden administration's potential plans to ban oil and gas exports, as well as the Energy Department's role in the potential misuse of the Strategic Petroleum Reserve. How would a shortage of diesel fuel affect day-to-day life for working Americans? And how does the Biden administration's release of fuel from the Strategic Petroleum Reserve impact our nation's security? Joining me now to discuss this is U.S. Representative James Comer. He serves as the ranking member on the House Committee of Oversight and Reform and also serves on the House Committee on Education and Labor. He represents Kentucky's 1st District. Congressman Comer, good to see you today.
Good to be here.
Now, first, I want to talk about this letter that you spearheaded. Why are you so concerned about the potential diesel shortage?
Well, first of all, let's look at Joe Biden's energy plan. It's been terrible. It's affected every facet of our energy industry in a negative way. When you have an administration that's trying to incorporate an unrealistic Green New Deal type energy policy, it's going to have negative consequences. And what we see now is a shortage of diesel. The Biden administration has already depleted our strategic reserves, which is supposed to be in a position for when we do have shortages or breakdowns in the supply chain or infrastructure breaks down. So we don't have a plan B with respect to shortage. So what the administration is trying to do now, without consulting with anyone, without having any committee hearings, without doing anything, is trying to ban exports. What they're doing continues to disrupt the market. And we want to know what they're basing these decisions on, who they're communicating with. Have they talked to anyone in the industry? Have they talked to anyone that has any expert knowledge outside of being a government bureaucrat about how to solve this potential crisis? And it is a crisis. We saw what happened when we have a supply chain breakdown. And that was because primarily because the ports were clogged up. Now, when there's going to be a shortage of diesel, to go along with another story that's not really gotten much press, and that's the fact that at least 25% of the barges in America are offline now because of the shallow water in the Mississippi River. So the ports going into Mississippi along going into New Orleans along the Mississippi River, that's been decimated too because of a drought that's affecting the depth of the river in the Mississippi. All of this is a perfect storm that is going to negatively impact consumers even more. So we want to know what the Biden administration plan is. And sadly, I don't think there is a plan. And obviously, we haven't received an answer yet.
Now, Congressman Comer, about the potential that oil exports would be banned. A lot of people don't understand oil markets. We might look at that and say, well, we have energy issues ourselves. Let's not export it. Let's keep it for ourselves so we can be energy independent. Why is that not the result of banning oil exports?
Well, I mean, you've got a situation where diesel is a different product than petroleum. And you've got a situation where the administration is trying to do a one-size-fits-all program in an emergency situation that's going to have an impact on all sorts of facets of the energy industry. We have a critical situation here with a shortage of diesel. If you limit all energy exports, you're going to clog the market. Then they're going to stop production. If there's a sudden increase in supply, and they have nowhere to go with it, then they're going to shut down production. Then it's going to be turned off again, and there's going to be a shortage again. We've got markets dictate supply and demand, but what Joe Biden's trying to do is dictate supply and demand based around the election. The reason he depleted the strategic reserves is to try to temporarily lower the price of gas. Yeah. What we said when he did that is that's going to have a short-term impact that's going to lower the price of gas, but affect us negatively long-term. This same thing's going to happen if he halts exports. It's going to disrupt the market. It's going to create a short-term oversupply. The producers will react. They'll cut off production, and then we're going to be in worse shape than ever with a shortage of diesel and a shortage of energy as a whole.
Congressman, you mentioned there the somewhat regular now draining of the strategic oil reserves. What is that reserve Why was it created? What was it intended for?
It was intended for a situation like we're about to face with a shortage of gasoline. You remember, we've had hackers from other countries who have tried to disrupt our pipelines, have tried to disrupt the production of our refineries and those types of energy facilities. If they did that, then that would temporarily reduce the supply, but we would have a strategic reserve that would get us through for a few days while we got it back online, got the refineries back online. Now, if there's a shortage of diesel, then we don't have any backup plan. And what the administration's trying to do is have a short-term fix. And when I say short-term, I'm talking about a few days before the election that's going to negatively impact the entire energy industry for months to come. It's very difficult to tinker with the supply and demand of the energy industry. It's created to be able to produce that energy and be able to use it right then. When you turn the switch on and off like Joe Biden's trying to do, it completely disrupts the market, and there's going to be supply shortages. It's going to be like during the Carter administration. You know, the Biden administration is starting to look a lot like the Jimmy Carter administration. And for those that aren't old enough to remember, there were long lines for gasoline, and the economy was in terrible shape, and we had hyperinflation. This is what we're going to face again because of Joe Biden's terrible energy policy. And all we're simply asking for on the Oversight Committee is, what is your plan? What's your plan A, plan B, plan C? What if plan A doesn't work? What's the backup plan? And they don't have that because they're just trying to get through and put a Band-Aid on this situation until after the election. And that's going to bring disaster for our economy.
And I want to get into that because this strategic oil reserve certainly was intended for emergencies, but recently it's been used for political emergencies, which may not have been the purpose. Now, Saudi Arabia's energy minister, Prince Abdulaziz bin Salman, said that using the emergency plan now may cause problems in the future. Let's play clip 6.
It's everybody's choice. However, it is my profound duty to make it clear to the world that losing emergency stock may become painful in the months to come.
Congressman, he's, of course, speaking for OPEC. What is he referring to, do you think?
Well, he's referring to the fact that they could cut off production. What Joe Biden's done with his energy policy is he's taken America from being energy independent to being dependent on OPEC now. And that's nowhere we need to be. And what OPEC is implying is they may cut production. They want higher gas prices now that they control such a significant portion of the energy industry again, because America is now once again dependent on OPEC. They can cut off production. They can wake up one morning and say, you know what, let's all have a couple of weeks off and let's not produce anything here. Now the United States doesn't have anything in reserve because Joe Biden sold it all to China to try to temporarily lower gas prices to get his poll numbers back up. And we're in a disastrous situation. That, along with what I mentioned earlier on the Mississippi River with the supply chain, we can't have another supply chain crisis in America, but it looks like that's where we're headed. And it's 100% because of this administration's terrible energy policy.
Well, and it does seem to be all election related. And of course, he's been fighting this narrative about increasing gas prices, increasing energy costs generally. Yesterday, President Biden said that prices have actually fallen since he took office. Let's play clip 2.
And because of the action we've taken, gas prices are declining. We're down $1.25 since the peak this summer, and they've been falling for the last 3 weeks as well. And adding up real savings for families. Today, the most common price of gas in America is $3.39, down from over $5 when I took office.
Congressman Comer, was gas $5 when President Biden took office?
No, it was half that. And whoever wrote that teleprompter could probably be indicted in any of the 50 states right now, including Washington, D.C., for that big of a lie. And this administration, if they really believe that gas prices are lower, then they're more out of touch than I thought. And I haven't given them a real high approval rating thus far. Look, we've got a terrible energy policy in America. This Biden administration keeps going backwards. They keep trying to put Band-Aids on the fact that they have done everything wrong with respect to energy. The solution to energy in America is for the government to get out of the way and let our great energy producers produce energy. Let us have more drilling permits. Let us have more fracking ability. Let us be able to burn coal. Let us be able to have an all of the above energy policy in America that's sourced in America. But yet what Joe Biden's trying to do is drastically change everything to electric vehicles when there's no capacity to do that. He's trying to cut off permitting on federal lands. He canceled the Keystone Pipeline. He's increased fines on our offshore drillers. He's banning fracking. I mean, all of this has had a disastrous effect on the price of gasoline, which has created more inflation in America. Now we have a shortage of diesel, which is going to magnify the supply chain crisis. And it's just one crisis after another. It's hard to imagine how much damage one person can do in 2 years as president of the United States, but we're seeing that every day.
Congressman Comer, so much I want to get to with you. We're out of time. 15 seconds. The election is less than 2 weeks away. What's going to happen?
I feel real good about it. You can feel the momentum on the side of Republicans. I think we're going to win as many as 30 seats in the House. We just need 6 to get a new Speaker of the House. And I believe the Senate's going to do it too. I'm predicting 51 Republican Senate seats. So I think it's going to be a great night for Republicans.
Congressman Comer, thank you so much for your time today.
Thanks for having me on.